Sylvia Sinclair and the Sorcery of the Sundae. First published in 2023 by Harshal Patel, the trusty sidekick always one step behind the legendary detective of ice cream mysteries, Sundae Sarapella. Copyright Harshal Patel, 2023, except for the parts borrowed from the wonderful world of J.K. Rowling. No owls were harmed in the creation of this book. The moral rights of the author have been asserted. Not ice cream eating rights, but those are moral too. All rights reserved. Except as permitted under national copyright laws, no part of this book may be replicated, transfigured, duplicated by magic or muggle means without prior written permission. All inquiries should be directed to the author. However, if it's about where to find the best ice cream, ask my wife. Printed in Ireland by Northside Graphics Ltd. Text design, cover design, and editing by Harshal Patel. Disclaimer. This story does not promise to satisfy your craving for ice cream. But hey, if you're ever in Diagon Alley, visit Florean Fortescue's. I hear their recipes are worth committing fictional crimes for. Thanks to J.K. Rowling for letting us bask in the magical glow of the wizarding universe. While I tried to play in her magical sandbox, remember I'm just having fun. I'm not making any claims to owning any part of the original Harry Potter universe. To Syndae, a gift for the woman who can never resist a scoop of ice cream or the thrill of unearthing dark and mysterious tales. A very happy 32nd birthday! Your love for the enchanted tales of Harry Potter and its simple yet boundless world amazes me. Your excitement for 2023's generative AI technologies inspired me to weave a story using those tools. A story of us, for us. A heartfelt thanks to J.K. Rowling for her wondrous contribution to our imaginations. Although I do not own any of J.K. Rowling's wizarding universe, this tale is a humble tribute, inspired by the magic she has gifted the world. In crafting this tale, ChatGPT assisted in shaping the narrative and characters, while Midjourney brought the story to life through its illustrations. This gift is not just mine but also molded by the generous guidance of Liam Borgstrom, John Tapanassi, Rand's leadership community, and Redditors. When you dive in, can you unravel the 20 traits and quirks that echo our essence amidst these characters? Here's to many more adventures, unwinding mysteries, and cherished moments, preferably with some enchanted ice cream in hand. Celebrating 6 magical years together. All my love! Harshal.
Sylvia Sinclair and the Sorcery of the Sundae. In the intricate maze of Diagon Alley, with its enchanting twists and turns, stood a parlor that was more than just a spot for refreshments. Florean Fortescue's ice cream parlor was an emblem of tradition and taste. Whimsical illustrations and designs of leprechauns adorned its walls, adding to the magical allure of the place. For many wizards, it was a journey back to fond memories, all thanks to a legendary ice cream recipe passed down through generations. One sunlit afternoon, as golden rays painted the parlor's interiors, Sylvia Sinclair, her long black hair contrasting beautifully with the golden ambience, found solace in a quiet booth. A detective of repute, Sylvia was known for untangling the most perplexing mysteries of the wizarding world. While she intended to enjoy a fleeting moment of calm, savoring her favorite ice cream, destiny had other plans. Suddenly, the gentle hum of conversations was overshadowed by alarmed whispers. The fabled ice cream recipe had disappeared. As shock permeated the room, Sylvia, always alert and caring, rose from her seat. Her eyes quickly scanned the parlor, searching for any immediate signs or clues. She moved swiftly, offering words of consolation to the distraught Fortescue, assuring him that all would be set right. With emotions swirling, a mix of urgency, concern, and hope, Sylvia summoned her patronus. The radiant phoenix burst into existence, a manifestation of her spirit, and soared through the parlor's oval windows, carrying a message heavy with both gravity and heart to Hector Pierce. While others panicked, Sylvia's keen observation caught something others might overlook. Just beside her booth, nestled among the cobblestone floor, lay a single crushed shamrock leaf. An odd find for an indoor establishment, especially given its pristine condition moments ago. The leaf, apart from its state, seemed ordinary. However, the fact it was here, in the middle of a magical crime scene, was intriguing. Amidst the startled crowd, a familiar silhouette emerged, Hector Pierce. Sylvia's childhood accomplice in many a mischief at Hogwarts approached her. Behind the gleam of his rimless round spectacles, his eyes met hers. Given that Hector worked just a stone's throw away in the mysterious Nocturne Alley, it took mere minutes for him to receive the summons and arrive at the scene. Their history was filled with tales of shared quests and challenges. While Sylvia's methods were anchored in logic and evidence, Hector had an uncanny ability to sense the unseen, to understand the silent rhythms of the wizarding world. Surprisingly, his coat was wet. The sunlit afternoon had given way to clouds and scattered rain. The rain had dampened his black tousled hair, making it stick slightly to his forehead. As Hector's discerning eyes swept over the scene, they paused at a gleaming streak of peculiar silver paint on the floor. Memories of Nocturne Alley came rushing back. The same shade had mysteriously clung to a bench there. Could it be a mere stroke of coincidence? Or perhaps a telltale sign of the perpetrator's hurried movements through the alley, inadvertently brushing against the wet paint in their haste or excitement? Realizing that the theft wasn't the work of an ordinary pilferer, but possibly that of a rogue wizard, they decided they needed expertise in magical traces. Their thoughts instantly turned to Mira Ollivander, the famed wandmaker's prodigy, known for her deep knowledge of wands and the magic they harnessed. In the dim ambience of Ollivander's wand shop, where the very air seemed to hold whispers of ancient spells, they met Mira. With her unmatched expertise, she presented them with custom-made wands, capable of sensing and deciphering the unique magical signature left at the crime scene. Equipped with tools and resolve, the duo, now strengthened by Mira's insights, made their way back to Florean Fortescue's ice cream parlor. The parlor, now void of its daytime cheer, appeared solemn, the echoes of its once lively ambience replaced by a deep silence that hung thick in the air. Sylvia, with her meticulous nature, began to inspect every nook and cranny, searching for tangible evidence, while Hector, drawing upon his unique ability to sense magical imprints, closed his eyes and attuned himself to the energies around. A soft hum escaped his lips, a technique he employed to better focus his magical senses. As he did so, the custom-made wand from Mira Ollivander started to glow subtly, pulsating in tandem with the magical frequencies it detected. The closer they moved to a particular booth near the door to the cellar, the stronger the glow became. Hector took a long moment before he whispered, "There's a distinct magical residue here, Sylvia. It's unlike anything I've sensed before. It's potent, but there's a hint of desperation to it." With a mix of determination and anxiety evident in her eyes, Sylvia nodded. She drew her wand and whispered a spell, hoping not just to reveal hidden footprints, but to get closer to the truth that weighed heavily on her heart. They glowed a vivid blue, leading away from the booth and vanishing near the entrance. The thief's magic, she deduced, interacted uniquely with the deep-rooted enchantments of this parlor. The stolen recipe was more than just a culinary secret, it was a piece in a puzzle they were now compelled to solve. With nightfall rapidly approaching, Diagon Alley transformed, the golden hues of daylight replaced by the iridescent shimmer of floating lanterns. Sylvia's long black hair flowed seamlessly with the night, her lean figure and poised elegance effortlessly blending into the ambience of Diagon Alley, her sharp eyes missing nothing. The rhythm of her footsteps, reminiscent of her days as a dancer, echoed slightly as she walked. Being a Hufflepuff, loyalty to her friends was paramount, but she had also worked hard to cultivate unique magical abilities that helped her succeed in the investigative world. She was known to make objects speak to her, revealing their history, a skill she referred to as the truth tendril. This was a talent that had proven invaluable during her investigative endeavors. However, the same skill became overwhelming with plants. Their vast histories and emotions were too intense for her to handle, so Sylvia preferred to not touch plants. Hector, with his rugged look and beard, presented a stark contrast. Growing up surrounded by enchanted melodies, he had developed a love for music. His analytical approach to problems, combined with his aptitude to discern hidden connections from vast amounts of magical data, was something he termed data divination. This gift had proved its worth on numerous occasions, revealing links and patterns others might overlook. Hector's Slytherin background, known for ambition and cunning, equipped him with a drive to solve even the most complex of their cases. But, beyond the spells and charms, Hector's wand, crafted from the wood of a whispering willow, had an unusual capability. When played like an instrument, it could replay past conversations or sounds it had heard, a skill known as enchanted echo. It was a skill he used discreetly, preserving the privacy of those around him, as he was wary of GDPR. "We need to be careful, Sylvia," Hector whispered, his voice resonating a familiar melody of caution. As they entered the narrow, winding alleyways of Nocturne Alley, the tension was palpable. Here, shadows played tricks on the eyes, and the cries of creatures hinted at the sinister. Moving beyond a peculiar store, displaying shrunken heads, Sylvia and her companion were drawn to the entrance of a historic pub, the Cursed Cauldron. The worn wooden door creaked open to reveal an interior steeped in rustic charm, its walls bearing witness to many tales and secrets of the town's past. Almost instantly, the enticing aroma of freshly fried fish and chips enveloped them, hinting at a lively evening unfolding within. The ambient sound of chatter was punctuated by the crispy bites of patrons savoring their golden brown fish and chunky chips. A man in the corner, lost in the delight of his meal, dipped a chip into tartar sauce, while a woman across the room gently squeezed a lemon wedge over her fish, her eyes closing in anticipation of the next tangy bite. The walls were adorned with vintage posters and wooden carved signs. Scattered among the vintage posters and carved wooden signs decorating the walls was a harp symbol motif, floating against a frothy, bubbly mug background. The soft, enchanting glow of the harp had a whimsical feeling with the words Guinness in a familiar black and white scheme. As Sylvia's gaze wandered over patrons laughing over drinks and a bartender filling mugs from taps adorned with the same whimsical logos, she felt a sudden, profound surge of emotions, fear, greed, and deceit. Amidst the warmth of the setting, she centered herself, employing her heart's whisper. She honed in on the overpowering sentiments emanating from the room's occupants, realizing that beneath their jovial exterior, many were shadowed by the weight of guilt. Using a mix of minor illusion spells to alter her appearance and her keen insight into human behavior, Sylvia seamlessly blended into the various groups, eavesdropping on the most intimate conversations. Hector, with a discreet scrying charm, was able to monitor multiple dialogues at once. Together, they discerned whispers and fragments of a mysterious auction being planned. If there was an auction, a lot of galleons were going to change hands. Gringotts was the place to go to. Bathed in the muted green glow of lanterns, Gringotts' high-ceiling chambers echoed softly with the whispered deals of wizards and the clinking of coins. Hector and Sylvia approached a goblin teller, a sharp sneer, giving away nothing of his true emotions. "Good day," Hector began, trying to sound casual. "We've heard of a certain auction that might be of interest." At the mention of an auction, the goblin's eyes narrowed ever so slightly. Sylvia tried to peer into the goblin's emotions with her heart's whisper, but all she felt was an unyielding wall. "We operate under strict regulations," the goblin said, his voice gravelly and almost mocking. "GDPR, to be exact." Sylvia, taken aback by the sudden mention, acted dumb. "GDPR? Goblin's data protection regulation permits us, the esteemed bankers of the wizarding world, to keep our secrets. So, I suggest you look elsewhere for your information." The duo exchanged frustrated glances. Even in a world of magic and might, bureaucracy found its way. They had heard rumors of how the regulation shielded these goblins, making even the most persistent aurors from the DMLE falter in their pursuits. The goblin, having made his point, turned his attention back to his ledgers, effectively dismissing them. A pang of disappointment coursed through Sylvia. She had poured her heart into persuading the goblin, but it felt as though her emotions and words merely dissipated into the cold air, leaving her efforts seemingly in vain. Exiting Gringotts, Hector's frustration was palpable. "It's bizarre, even for magic," he muttered. Before Sylvia could respond, her sharp eyes caught a witch in line, engrossed in reading a magazine upside down. An idea struck her instantly. "Hector," she whispered, her voice laced with excitement, "remember how Luna reads The Quibbler?" His eyes met hers, understanding dawning. Wacky magic, Luna's specialty. Their thoughts reminded them of their friend, Luna Lovegood, now a reputable journalist. Luna, having documented numerous magical mysteries, was always up for archaic magic and symbols. Sylvia smiled, the wheels in her detective mind already turning. To the Lovegood house, then. With renewed hope, they hastened their steps. They apparat to the Lovegood house. Once inside, they caught Luna up to their story and asked for her help. With a graceful flourish of her wand, Luna summoned several old issues of The Quibbler. They flew towards her, spiraling like autumn leaves, their pages slightly yellowed by age. The distinct scent of old parchment filled the air, a nostalgic aroma that tugged at the edges of memories. Luna's fingers danced over the worn pages, her expression introspective, lost in the world of stories her family had documented over the decades. "Ah, here we are," she murmured, her voice tinged with a hint of intrigue. She looked up at Sylvia and Hector, eyes gleaming. "The Lovegoods have written about many mysteries, but this one," she paused, tapping an old article, "is about Florean Fortescue's legendary ice cream." Luna's voice drifted off, creating an atmosphere of intrigue as Sylvia and Hector leaned closer. She began to recite the tale from The Quibbler. Many years ago, Florean Fortescue, fascinated by the idea of blending magic and flavors, took a journey to the mystical lands of Ireland, hoping to craft an ice cream with a unique touch from the Emerald Isle. He heard tales of a magical recipe, one which was said to be as elusive as the leprechauns themselves. One evening, caught in a sudden downpour, he stumbled upon an ancient parchment. The writings on the parchment were indecipherable, but as the misty Irish rain soaked it, words began to emerge. The instructions detailed the infusion of magic into the delicacy of ice cream. But it wasn't complete, crucial elements were concealed. In his journey, Florean came across an old bowron, exquisitely decorated with a motif of a three-leaf shamrock, the symbol of luck and prosperity in Irish folklore. Intrigued by its elegance and the faint magical hum it emanated, Florean tapped it. The rhythmic beat of the bowron sang a tune that wasn't just music, but also a riddle. The beats and the spaces in between revealed a message, hinting at the missing ingredients and the precise way to churn the mixture. The final touch, the true heart of the magical ice cream, was the essence of the Irish shamrock leaf. Not just any shamrock leaf, but one kissed by the first rays of sunrise after a night of rain. With every scoop, one would taste the magic of the land, the mystery of the rain, and the rhythm of the bowron. Luna paused, her eyes distant as if she had traveled alongside Florean in his quest. She looked back to Sylvia and Hector. And so, Florean Fortescue returned to his shop in Diagon Alley, bringing with him not just a recipe, but a tale of wonder and magic from the heart of Ireland. Although Sylvia found herself lost in the emotional tides of the recipe's crafting, Hector's data divination was putting the pieces together. Luna continued, in a mock-educational tone, rumor has it that when crafted in a golden cauldron with the shed leaves of a moonshade moss at the dusk of the summer solstice, the secret recipe unveils flavors and magical effects unbeknownst to the common wizard. But, she leaned in, her voice dropping to an almost conspiratorial whisper, it has to be done in a high tower, embraced by water and guarded by ancient trees. Behind his rimless round spectacles, Hector's eyes shimmered with a flash of revelation as the intricacies of the tale wove themselves into a familiar tapestry. Sylvia had seen a shamrock today. The golden cauldron, the moonshade moss, and the high tower, they all pointed unmistakably towards Hogwarts' School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and its towering observatory. In the dim recesses of Nocturne Alley, Hector had caught elusive whispers, carried on the clandestine breath of shadowy figures. His enchanted echo, like a vigilant sentinel, had captured these veiled dialogues dancing around the rare moonshade moss. Yet each of his inquiry was met with an echoing silence, for the moonshade moss was believed to flourish solely beneath the enchanted glass canopy of Hogwarts' House 4. After making their preparations, Sylvia and Hector stood before the fireplace in the Lovegood house. Hector handed Sylvia a pinch of flue powder, and they both took turns throwing it into the flames. The green fire roared to life, and one after the other, they stepped into the blazing emerald, calling out Hogwarts. Moments later, they stumbled out, finding themselves in the grand entrance hall of Hogwarts. At Hogwarts, as they navigated its vast corridors, Sylvia brushed her fingers along the walls of her erstwhile school to activate her truth tendril. She reached out, touching the ancient walls, feeling its memories. With the heavy weight of the situation pressing on them, Hector hesitated for a moment before he remembered the wands Mira had given them earlier. Sylvia, the wands, he exclaimed, pulling out the sleek instrument from his pocket. Sylvia followed suit, brandishing her wand with a determined look on her face. Let's see what magical signatures we can uncover here. The room of requirement transformed, revealing an ancient door. They saw what looked like an ice cream lab. Only a former student would know these secrets, Sylvia murmured, feeling a rush of emotions from the room. The duo pointed their wands towards the lab centerpiece, a magical churner that was clearly used to create the ice creams. With a synchronized motion, they chanted an incantation that Mira had taught them. Slowly, the wands began to glow, pulsing with a rhythm that indicated the presence of residual magic. As they moved through the lab, the glow from the wands changed intensity and hue. At the far end of the lab, next to an open recipe book, the wands emitted a sharp, bright light, signaling a strong magical signature. The page displayed a recipe for a particular flavor of ice cream but was sprinkled with a unique incantation. It was clear that whoever used this book last had incorporated their own magical twist into the ice cream making process. It's them, Sylvia whispered, the glow from the wand illuminating her face. This magical signature, it matches the one at Florean Fortescue's. Hector's expression darkened. We're closer now. We just need to trace this back to the source. Hector nodded in agreement. This is more complicated than we thought. With the help of the wand's magical tracing capabilities, the duo was one step closer to uncovering the identity of their mysterious adversary. Both understood that they were not only against someone dangerous, but also deeply familiar. They knew the recipe was at Hogwarts. Sitting amidst the scattered scrolls in the dim-lit room, the weight of their discovery bore heavily on their minds. After a moment of contemplative silence, Sylvia broke the quietness. Something's brewing in this very lab. Her gaze met Hector's, both filled with uncertainty. Hector's thoughts were on the black market. What about the mysterious auction? He mused aloud. She nodded in acknowledgement. Should we focus on finding the auction, or is the astronomy tower the key? Their decisions loomed large, and the stakes were higher than ever. Inside the dimly lit ice cream lab at Hogwarts, sat Sylvia and Hector, pondering on their next move. Sylvia's fingers delicately danced across the array of tools laid out on the table. She hesitated as her touch grazed a peculiar etching on one of the scoops. Its design was foreign to her yet strangely familiar. This doesn't belong here, she whispered, her eyes narrowing in on the strange symbol. Hector leaned in, adjusting his glasses for a clearer view. He examined the etching, his brow furrowing in deep concentration. It looks old, he said thoughtfully, tracing the outlines of the symbol with his fingertips, and not the usual magic signature you'd find in an ice cream lab. Sylvia's heart raced, her intuition firing alarms. It feels malevolent. Like a shadow's touch, she said, her voice quivering just slightly. Hector, I believe this is a sign of something much darker at play. Hector, with an analytic glint in his eyes, tried to place the emblem. I've come across symbols from various magical lineages, he began, searching for words at a ponderous pace, but this, it's on the tip of my tongue. He paced the room, retracing his vast mental library of magical histories and symbols. Hours seemed to pass, and with a sudden jolt, Hector exclaimed, whispering wraiths. Sylvia, this symbol is connected to the notorious Whispering Wraiths, a shadowy group known to meddle in forbidden magics. Sylvia's determination was evident. We must act. If they're involved, we can't waste a moment. Nocturne Alley is our best bet, she declared, her heart pushing her forward. Hector, ever the voice of reason, interjected, while I understand your urgency, Sylvia, we must approach this with caution. He took a deep breath, the Whispering Wraiths are no ordinary foes. We need a plan. With the dim light of the setting sun filtering through the stained windows of Hogwarts, Sylvia and Hector gathered around an ancient table laden with scrolls and magical instruments. Every second was precious. Whispering incantations and drawing runes, they crafted tracing spells for the labyrinthine 7th-floor corridor. The old tapestry depicting the attempt of Barnabas the Barmy to teach trolls ballet would now also serve as a sentinel, cloaked with alarm wards, a silent watcher against the lurking shadows. As they finally emerged from the castle's stone confines, the night had fully taken hold, with the rustling leaves of the forbidden forest creating an eerie symphony in the wind. The whispers of Nocturne Alley were colder and murkier than the hidden corners of the wizarding world, but they sang the most tantalizing tunes to those who knew how to listen. As Sylvia and Hector, cloaked in disguise, made their way deeper into the alley, they felt the weight of numerous eyes upon them. This was a place where one wrong step could lead to your undoing. But they had to retrieve that recipe, for it was more than just a formula, it was a piece of magical history. Sylvia's heart's whisper told her of the myriad emotions around her, greed, desperation, curiosity, and more. But one emotion stood out above the rest, hunger. Not the kind for food, but for power. And at the center of this web of desires stood Drusilla Frost. Hector, tapping into his data divination, began picking up on patterns. They're having the auction soon, he whispered to Sylvia. I can see a few people who seem to be here for the same reason. Through narrow passageways and concealed doors, the two finally arrived at a chamber that buzzed with anticipation. Floating candles illuminated dark artifacts. The room was filled with a motley crowd, their robes reflecting varying degrees of wealth and dark intent. Some, with embroidered hoods hiding their features, murmured softly as they examined various magical items displayed around. Others, with discerning eyes, moved with quiet authority, pointing and whispering about the artifacts that piqued their interest. Sylvia nudged Hector, nodding subtly towards a huddled group in the far corner. She approached them, her radiant charm on full display. What a collection! I've never seen such rarities in one place, she exclaimed, feigning excitement. A stout man with a grizzled beard smirked, first time, dearie? With a coy smile, Sylvia replied, oh, yes. I've heard so much about these auctions. Just had to see it for myself. Hector, meanwhile, engaged a tall, thin woman whose silver hair cascaded over her shoulder. I've come in search of the Fortescue recipe. Rumor has it that it's the crown jewel of this auction. She raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Ah, that's the talk of the town, isn't it? But between us, she leaned closer, I'm here for an ancient amulet said to control the inferi. The recipe, while tempting, is child's play compared to that. As the two detectives wove through the room, their conversations revealed a mixture of motivations. Some were here for genuine artifacts, their obsession with magical history evident in their fervor. Others, like Drusilla, had their sights set on the coveted ice cream recipe. Every time she would engage in hushed conversations, her eyes would dart around, as if fearing someone might overhear her nefarious plans. Hector and Sylvia rendezvoused in a secluded corner. Their whispered exchange was quick and to the point. Many here are a distraction, but Drusilla is undoubtedly our key, Sylvia confirmed. Hector nodded, agreed. Let's keep a close watch on her. If she's here for the recipe, she'll reveal her hand soon. Before Sylvia and Hector could formulate their next move, a chilling gust of wind swept through the auction room, snuffing out a few candles and drawing the attention of the crowd. Drusilla Frost, with her unmistakable icy streak of blue in her raven-black hair, gracefully took center stage, commanding the room without uttering a word. Every eye was upon her, drawn in by her frosty elegance and undeniable presence. The air grew colder as she began to speak. Esteemed attendees of this auction, her voice was smooth, laced with both authority and allure, many of you are here seeking power, dominance, or mere artifacts to adorn your collections. But today, I offer a vision much grander. She paused, allowing the suspense to build. I stand before you, not merely as an inheritor of the Frost legacy, but as a visionary determined to shape the future of our world. This legendary recipe, although of immense value in the culinary world, holds a far more potent magic than most could fathom. With a flourish of her wand, a shimmering hologram of the stolen recipe appeared above her. The crowd gasped, and hushed murmurs filled the room. Most would use this simply for decadent ice creams and trifles, but I see beyond that, Drusilla continued, her piercing sapphire eyes captivating her audience. Incorporated into a potion, it becomes the essence of invulnerability. Stronger than a Fidelius, more potent than Felix Felicis. A sip of this concoction, and you, dear witches and wizards, will possess the power to resist any magical or physical attack, standing tall against any foe. Sylvia, gripping Hector's arm, whispered frantically, she's not just trying to restore her family's legacy, she's attempting to create an army of the invulnerable. Hector, with furrowed brows, nodded, realizing the depth of Drusilla's ambition. Drusilla's voice resonated with conviction as she continued, with this potion, we can forge an era of strength, fortitude, and unmatched power. Together, let us elevate our world, and especially the name of Frost, to heights never seen before. Her proposal was audacious, yet her cold aura and determined demeanor made it hard to doubt her resolve. The crowd burst into murmurs and whispering, with some nodding in agreement while others looked apprehensive. The stakes had just gotten higher. Sylvia and Hector exchanged glances, realizing that recovering the recipe was not just about preserving history but averting a potential upheaval in the magical world. Suddenly, with a commanding sweep of her hand, Drusilla unleashed Ice Whisperer. The room's temperature plummeted as intricate ice sculptures sprang up around her, shifting and moving with a life of their own. Towering, elegant statues of frost falcons, reminiscent of the Frost family crest, hissed menacingly at the crowd, their crystalline eyes glowing with an eerie blue light. Minions crafted from pure ice skated menacingly across the floor, each poised to strike. This wasn't just a display of her prowess, it was a raw, chilling assertion of her dominance. Sylvia, always light on her feet, called upon her dancers dodge. She twirled and leapt, the room transforming into her stage, with each evasion resembling a dance step. As an ice minion lunged at her, she pivoted gracefully, letting the icy creature crash into a nearby wall. Hector, on the other hand, was the embodiment of martial precision. As another of Drusilla's icy creations bore down on him, Hector channeled his martial magical arts, using the creature's momentum against it, redirecting and smashing it to shards. His wand was an extension of him, creating shields and deflecting icy spikes. Drusilla, however, was far from deterred. Raising her arms, she called forth a massive wave of frost and ice, attempting to encase Sylvia and Hector within icy prisons. The detectives realized that simply evading wouldn't suffice, they needed to be offensive. In a synchronized move, Sylvia launched herself into a spin, creating a whirlwind of magical energy while Hector cast a searing spell, converting the whirlwind into a fiery vortex. The collision of fiery energy against the cold onslaught created a blinding steam, cloaking the room in a thick fog. Amid the chaos, Hector's voice echoed, "We cannot outfight her here, she has the upper hand in this environment." Sylvia, weaving through the mist, shot back, "We need to retrieve that recipe and regroup." Both knew that confronting Drusilla head-on in a setting she controlled would be folly. As the mist swirled, the duo used it as a cloak, aiming to retrieve the holographic recipe and make a strategic retreat. They would need to come up with a plan, for Drusilla Frost was proving to be as formidable as legends painted her. Amid the thick haze, Sylvia reached deep into her magical core, harnessing the truth tendril. Guided by the very essence of the legendary recipe, she felt a tug towards a glass dome perched on an elevated platform. As Hector kept the ice minions at bay with his martial magical arts, Sylvia saw her window of opportunity. With an agile leap, she vaulted to the platform, using her dancer's dodge to avoid the ice that threatened to impede her. With a swift move, Sylvia snatched the glass dome containing the recipe off the platform. Holding it aloft, she threatened to destroy the recipe, stating that if it couldn't be in the right hands, it shouldn't be in any hands at all. The room fell silent. All eyes were on Sylvia, the mist amplifying the tension. Drusilla, taken aback by Sylvia's audacity, momentarily lowered her wand. The chilling aura that surrounded her wavered, revealing, just for a split second, the desperate girl yearning for her family's recognition. She spoke, her voice a blend of defiance and plea, "Do not mistake my ambition for malice. I simply seek to restore the honor of the Frosts." Sylvia, sensing the depth of her emotions, replied, "By disrupting the balance of the magical world?" "The price is too steep, Drusilla." Hector, seeing the shifting dynamics, played a soft, haunting note on his wand, the enchanted echo replaying the voices of the past Frosts, reminding Drusilla of their legacy of honor and integrity. The room, filled with haunting whispers and the weight of history, held its breath, waiting for Drusilla's next move. As the mist began to clear, Sylvia, still holding the glass dome aloft, eyed Drusilla, her demeanor firm yet compassionate. "Drusilla," she began, her voice softened, "true legacy isn't built upon power or invulnerability, but on the memories we leave and the impact we make. The icy chamber grew silent, save for the distant dripping of water as the remnants of Drusilla's sculptures began to melt away. Drusilla's sapphire eyes, which once gleamed with ambition and determination, now glistened with a mix of pain and realization. Hector, drawing closer to Sylvia, nodded in agreement. Think of the generations that flocked to Frost's flavors, cherishing every scoop, every flavor. They didn't come for invulnerability, they came for the memories created with each bite. A lone tear rolled down Drusilla's frosted cheek as the weight of Sylvia's words hit home. She looked around, realizing that in her pursuit of power, she had lost sight of what truly mattered. I wanted to be remembered, she whispered, her voice quivering. To restore the honor of my family's name. But in my desperation, I lost my way. Sylvia approached, placing a reassuring hand on Drusilla's shoulder. Your legacy isn't defined by a single recipe or a moment of power, she murmured, her voice full of warmth and understanding. It's crafted over time, with love, care, and the positive mark you leave on people's hearts. Drusilla's icy demeanor began to thaw. With a deep, shuddering breath, she took a step back, her cold aura slowly warming. The room, sensing the shift, seemed to brighten. Perhaps, she mused, looking from Sylvia to Hector, it's time to focus on creating new memories rather than clinging to old glories. Sylvia smiled, nodding in agreement. That's a legacy worth building. With a newfound sense of purpose, Drusilla held out her hand. It shimmered with a hint of frost as she handed the legendary recipe back to Sylvia, sealing her decision to tread a nobler path. Hector, with a nod of gratitude, began weaving an intricate charm on a piece of metal debris, and soon a portkey emerged in the form of an ice cream scoop. With the recipe in hand and Drusilla's threats neutralized, the duo decided that their presence in Nocturne Alley had run its course. Hold tight, Hector whispered, as the world spun around them. In what felt like mere seconds, the dizziness faded, revealing Diagon Alley. The iconic cobblestone streets of Diagon Alley lay under the pale light of the moon, casting long shadows that played tricks on the eyes. But Diagon Alley was not deserted. The glimmers of Lumos lights emanated from Fortescue's ice cream parlor, and voices murmured from within. As they approached cautiously, Fabian Fortescue emerged from his shop. His face etched with concern. Sylvia, Hector, he began in a hushed tone, I'm so glad you've come. The DMLE sent a couple of oars over. They'd been asking a lot of questions, trying to help. Sylvia quickly held up the recipe, showing Fortescue its authenticity. We managed to retrieve it. But Fabian, we might have stirred some unrest in Nocturne Alley. You need to be careful. The dark streets of Diagon Alley, once bustling with life and laughter, now served as a silent witness to the covert dealings of the magical world. Several days later, Diagon Alley was abuzz once again, but this time for a different reason. Wizards and witches from all corners were gathering for a grand celebration at Fortescue's. Word had spread that not only was the treasured recipe back, but there was something special in store. The parlor, adorned with magical illuminations and spellbound decorations, was radiant. Anticipation filled the air. As the evening settled, Sylvia and Hector, now recognized as the saviors of the treasured heritage, stepped forward. Sylvia spoke of honoring legacies and, to the delightful surprise of all, unveiled a new creation. Mystic Moonlight, she announced a flavor inspired by her thrilling adventure, a blend of deep moonlit chocolate and earthy enchanted hazelnut, interspersed with lavender honey ripples and surprise bursts of exploding bonbon salted caramel candy. The wizards, now knowing the tale behind it, reveled in the taste, understanding that while traditions are to be cherished, there's also room for something new. The day was filled with joy, laughter, and the shared love for magical ice cream. As wizards and witches sampled the new delight, Sylvia and Hector found themselves back at the very booth where it all began. Sharing a floating bowl of ever-frosting ice cream, they mused over their eventful journey. With a mischievous glint in her eye, Sylvia whispered, "What's our next adventure?" Hector laughed. Leaning back with a satisfied sigh, he responded, "Give it some time, Sylvia. For now, let's just savor the sweetness of today."